DJ PK, and we are joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, we could ask you some good news questions and talk to you about the Jazz and the acquisition and debut of JJJ, Jaren Jackson Jr., or we could go negative and ask you how BYU is going to snap this 4-game losing streak. You want to kick off your post-Super Bowl world with some positivity or some negativity, Steve? Because we're going to get to both before we're done. We'll let you make the call.
Now let's start with some positivity.
All right. Jaren Jackson Jr., how good can they be next year when they don't sit everybody in the fourth quarter and stop calling timeouts and try to blow a double-digit lead, which they did in Orlando?
Yes. Obviously, I think people have got to be happy. I think there's been questions over the last couple of years in terms of what direction we're going. Are we tanking? Are we going to try to rebuild? Whatever the circumstances are. But I think this is a real positive step for the fan base, for the community. I mean, Jaren Jackson is a former, Defensive Player of the Year twice, NBA All-Star. He's a guy that can have an immediate impact on this team. And I'm excited. I was very surprised. I didn't see this coming, obviously, but I think it's just a statement from the Jazz organization that we're going to get better. And getting Jaren Jackson Jr. there, only 26 years old, two-time All-Star, scored 22 and a loss to Orlando, but I think he's going to be a great asset to the program, and looking forward to watching him play. So that was a real positive thing. There's some other things. I was kind of excited about Jock Landale until they sent him to the Hawks, but that was a short time. But I did watch him when he was at St. Mary's. But Concher, 29 years old, defender, upgrade there. He's not a guy that's going to score a lot for you, but he's a guy that's competitive. Same thing with Vince Williams Jr., 25-year-old guard, about 8'4" and 4. Solid defender. So I think they've improved themselves defensively. And Jaren Jackson's a guy that's a difference maker that can, let's get away from no more tanking. And I think Jaren Jackson's going to have a huge impact on the program.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be a fact. You recruited Austin Ainge, and he played for you. And I can recall life is different now because everybody charters. But in those days, I traveled with the team. As you know, I had many conversations with you sitting at airports, and you get to know guys. And even as a youngster, when he got back from his mission, I felt like Austin had a real keen insight on basketball, and he had a basketball mind. And I enjoyed downtime conversations with him, or in an interview situation with him analyzing the game. And I was always very impressed with him. And I see he comes in and makes this first move like this. What did you learn about Austin Ainge's ability in terms of observing the game and figuring out how pieces fit? Because I always thought that he was exceptionally bright when it came to that stuff. Very, very, very high IQ, basketball IQ. I mean, he's really smart on and off the court. But, I obviously I spent a lot of time being around Austin, and I think anytime you're playing, you want to play. But from the moment that he got there, and obviously just growing up with Danny and that family and back in Boston, and he's been prepared for this experience. But the little things I noticed is that we had conversations during the course of the year, and every guy wants to play and every guy wants to have an impact in the program. But I learned so much from him just in our conversations and trying to be evaluating where we were as a team. And this does not surprise me. He's just a really, really bright young man, and he's had a lot of experience. Obviously spent a number of years back in Boston. Now he's out here with the Jazz, and it's a good thing for this community, and it's a good thing for the Jazz, because he's going to take this thing in a direction. And obviously Jaren Jackson Jr. is just an immediate impact on how Utah can be better. And so, yeah, I watched him, and as a player, he's a high IQ and very humble. He would tell you what he thinks. He wouldn't back down from that. And if he disagreed with me, he'd share that with me. And if I didn't agree with him, we'd have those kind of conversations. But just not just a really basketball high IQ, but just a great human being.
And I think that when you go into these kind of situations where you're making really difficult decisions, I just love this young man, and he's got integrity, and he's got a commitment to making the Jazz better, and that whole organization. So it's fun to watch him go about doing what he's doing, and I wish him all the well. I mean, I'll tell you what, this community has been so supportive in a very difficult times over the last several years and trying to figure out kind of where the Jazz are and what's the next step and how can we get better. This is a huge step forward for the Jazz, and I'm excited about it.
In his post-game comments, it was really clear that Kevin Young has thought about lineup changes, and he is thinking about lineup changes, trying to decipher what he was saying in those few minutes. I think he's thought about it seriously, and he's decided he's probably not going to make lineup changes. But, man, one bad practice and somebody shows up late for something, and he might make a lineup change because he's not far from it. What would you advise him as he considers this? Because he's clearly talked about a different combination of guys. Maybe they had enough going against Houston. He doesn't want to do it. I think if they had a really bad performance against Houston, it was pretty clear he would make lineup changes. Can he kind of smooth over their lack of depth and hide that a little bit if he tweaks things? In his answers, he was clearly contemplating that seriously. What would you advise him?
To do exactly what he's doing, and that is to contemplate and walk through, and you want to involve your staff. There's some things as a head coach that you have a gut feeling about in terms of what direction we need to take, and I had those experiences, and Kevin's having those as well. You lose 4 games in a row after really having a great start to the season, but I think this is an opportunity to hold your players accountable as well. I think it's real easy for everyone to point fingers at Kevin, and then obviously that's just the nature of how we play the game, and that's what fan bases do, and that's what people do. But I like the idea of sitting down with AJ and sitting down with Richie and sitting down with Rob Wright. These are guys that are the foundation of this team. But spending some time, I would sometimes you'd have team meetings, but sometimes you just take maybe your captains or you take those that are having a real impact and spend some time and get a pulse and a feel. And you can get that sense from your coaches, but and I think this coaching staff, they're not going to sugarcoat this. I know that for sure. I mean, this is a competitive group of young men that are, coaching this team. But I think it's time that the players there's an accountability piece there that, whether it's AJ, AJ's a freshman. He's a young guy, and Saunders has been there for 4 years. Wright's been there now a couple years. I think you take your best players, you bring them in and talk about what can we do better. And then you'll eventually have a team meeting where you talk to the team and you can dissect this thing, but not over dissect it. At the end of the day, yes, they got 4 losses in a row. And losing to Houston and being as competitive, there was no quit in that Houston game. But Houston we know they're a better team, and they're in a completely different place than BYU is right now. So I like bringing players in, getting their thoughts, obviously spending time with your coaches, and let's find out what the players think. Let's find out what they think they could do better. I mean, they're just as involved in this as anybody. This is not a pointing fingers deal. This is hey, how can we get better here? How can we get through this? Obviously, they're in a situation where they're going to play Baylor, and that's a team that people from the outside looking in go, that's a winnable game. Is that a game where we can kind of get our confidence back? However, when I look at Baylor, they beat Colorado, which Baylor should do. And what struck me quickly was that Iowa State 72, Baylor 69, and it was a road game for them. So I'm looking at the players here, the personnel. Agrim had 15, Carr had 24, Yesavur had 17. This is not a lay down Baylor team that you're just going to show up and think that the things are going to change and we're going to get this thing rolling again. Baylor is one of those teams that you've got to really, really be careful with, especially when they're playing at home.
When the Cougars are on defense and the shot goes up, do they just got to send 5 guys to the glass?
Well, my first thought on that is they've got to improve that part of their game. I think 5 guys to the glass might create some opportunities for transition baskets, real easy baskets. But I understand what you're saying. I think those are, again, conversations that, you can watch film. I mean, that's the thing, we watch a game and we forget about it, but they have all the film. It's all broken down, and there's accountability here. And this is a time where the coaching staff, which I know will be accountable and go through this thing, but this is a time that you have to look at this and go, okay, yeah, AJ was 36, 7, and 4, big time game. All right. Where's his voice in this? And he's a freshman. He's a young guy. But what I think that Richie Saunders, who has been a little bit up and down recently, but he's a leader. Wright is a leader. And AJ is a rookie freshman that is an incredible talent. But the players are going to have to step up here. This can't be just a coaching staff. So the accountability piece, I don't know what's happening over there, but right now, I'm thinking that we all have to be more accountable as a staff, as players, and it's no time to point fingers. What it's time to do is, how can we be better? What can we do to not block out and not get defensive and offensive rebounds and not have an aggression level? And, the little things that help you win games on the road and games at home. So I think that was just kind of a shock and a slap in the face. Nobody kind of saw Oklahoma State scoring 99 points. Again, they're at home. I get it. But that's a red flag right there. So I think getting back to the defensive end, this is a staff that knows what they're doing, and it's tough and it's challenging. But I think you start with defending and you start with accountability with your guys.
How about challenging DeBonsa to be double-double guy with his size, with his length, with his athletic ability? Go get 10 rebounds. And you're saying be Superman and put the cape on. Well, he wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and he doesn't want to be a good pro. He wants to be a great pro. And at that point in the longer game, if he gets the ball in his hands, you're going to start saying you need to be triple-double guy, because that's what great pros just routinely do now. So what about throwing that gauntlet down in front of him? It's a huge ask, but even if he got to 8 or 9 rebounds, might make the difference in some of these games.
That's a great point. And I'm sure probably that the staff's probably had that, maybe a conversation. But I think, AJ, when you're young like this and all of the tension's on you, it's really, there's a quiet time you can have as a player and a coach, as a head coach, and that you can spend time. And we know what AJ, who he is and what his talent is. But I think you go to your best player and you ask him, what can we do? What can you do to help me as a coach here? How can we right the ship? And you have that conversation with him. And I know he's only a 18-year-old freshman rookie, but this is your best player. So get buy-in from him. Let's see where his leadership takes him. I mean, he's going to go play at the next level here real soon. And it's going to be kind of a different world, but there's real accountability in the league. There's exposure everywhere. And so I'd love to see, coach sit down with someone like AJ and maybe involve Saunders and Wright, but there has to be some accountability here. And I think if AJ, what a great opportunity for him as a young man to talk about, I'm going to set some goals for me. I want to be a 20, 10, and 10 guy. I want to be a 20 and 14 guy and 2 assists, whatever it might be. Let's set that standard and let AJ be a guy, even though he's a rookie and a freshman, that he has a chance to step up here and really help this team. And I don't want to lay it on a freshman because he's done everything he's been asked of. But I think right now he's played long enough. He's had an impact on this team, and he deserves to have a say in this. And as obviously Saunders and Wright do as well. And I think between those three, they have to be an important part of this in terms of communicating to teammates, coaches, and they can get this thing going again. It's very doable. You can't get your head down, and that includes coaching staffs. This staff, I've watched them a lot in practice. They're not giving up. And they'll have an opportunity here to turn this thing around. But it needs to happen sooner than later because it does wear on you. Even as a coaching staff, it wears on your players. And so I'm hoping that we can see some things changed here. And I mean, the Houston game, man, they're good. And that did not surprise me, what Houston did. But I think Coach Young and his staff need to look forward, and let's focus on doing everything we can to get a win at Baylor and get this ship turned around and have some positive feelings about going forward here in the latter part of the league.
You talk about how it wears on you. Actually, doesn't it consume you?
I'm not going to speak for other coaches, but for me, absolutely. It can. It can just absolutely consume you. That's when you need, one of the things I loved about Dave Rose and when we were together, and there was a lot of things we had to learn kind of on the run, but I loved his attitude of accountability, and I loved his willingness to support me and help me with the staff and come together, and that meant a lot to me. And it helped. And I was just as new to this. I've come out of a junior college. He had been in his junior college. There were a lot of things we didn't know, but one of the great attributes of Dave Rose is that he's got a winning mindset. And he helped me to understand that when we were going through some tough times and getting beat pretty badly, and that's just what some of the price you have to pay when you're totally rebuilding a program coming off a 1-win season. But so lean on, get the thoughts and ideas from your assistants and get their feeling. You can't. I think sometimes as a head coach, you feel like I got to go in the office and sit down and figure this out. Man, you're going to go in that office, then take your assistants with you. Find out what they think, what they feel. And then it's going to be pretty appropriate here down the road where maybe you do bring in your guys and you sit down and talk about as a team things that we can do. This is the time right now when you've lost 4 in a row. Let's involve everyone. And I'm not talking about the fan base or us as those that are watching this and from a radio or a TV perspective. But I think it's time to involve everyone. And what will happen when you do that, there'll be a unity and a continuity of going forward and being better down the road. And you can turn the corner on this.
Last thing here before we let you go, they put up a graphic on the broadcast during the game, and it showed how Houston has dominated both at the end of their run in the American Athletic Conference and in the Big 12. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like they've lost, I think, 11 league games in 5 years or something like that. They're just destroying people. And the thing they said, you get that big a sample size, well, the players change, right? It's like, well, it's in Houston's DNA. They play so hard. They contest every pass. They don't let you switch the ball from one side of the court to the other to get an open shot unless you take the thing all the way out to half court, and even then they might turn you over. And they battle for every rebound. I don't know how all these teams, BYU included, but how do all these other teams just concede the fact that Houston's going to be the team in the league that plays the hardest? So you think you're going to be the best and they're going to play the hardest? Now Arizona's undefeated, so we'll see what Arizona does this year, right? But it's like that's something – that just has to change. You can't go into a game thinking, well, they'll play harder than us, but we'll win. If you're not matching their intensity, why do you think you should win? And then you look at the record. Well, most of the time you don't win. An overwhelming percentage of the time. Everybody's got to crank it up in every phase of the game because that's what Houston does.
Well, I've had a chance to be around Kelvin Sampson, and we're not good friends in terms of social settings and that kind of thing. But the few times I've met with him and the times I've watched him, this is Kelvin Sampson. You talk about culture and you talk about, winning and losing. And I watch his teams. His players have taken on his personality. That's what they've done. I mean, I watched them go to the bench, and I watched them when mistakes were made and how they interacted with you. I mean, I do that all the time when I go to games. I want to see what's going on with the head coach and assistant coaches and with players. And the culture that Kelvin Sampson has created there's an expectation. Kelvin doesn't have to yell and scream at these guys. They know exactly. And then Kelvin is a very emotional and high-strung guy at times. We've seen that. And that's not going to go away. That's who he is. But I'm telling you that man has created a culture there. It doesn't matter who he's got. And obviously they have recruiters and they've got good players, but there's something special about what he has done everywhere he's gone as a coach. And he hasn't always had great talent in every place that he's been, but Kelvin Sampson, to me, is your coach of the year, whether he went, every year. I mean, he's a guy that, not to take anything away from all the great coaches in the country, but Kelvin Sampson is someone that I looked to and watched and could see that I need to be more like him. I need to have more intensity and drive, and I need to be in a situation where I can get my players to a point where do we get to a next level? And Kelvin Sampson seems to be able to do that year in and year out. And it's no surprise that they're doing what they're doing. You know, and they've got 2 freshmen that play significant minutes that are averaging 35, 36 points a game between them. So these aren't senior-laden teams, and obviously Zahn and Sharp are senior guards, and they're good players. But when you see that he's doing this with freshmen, and I don't know if they're set out or whatever the circumstance, but when you can take freshmen and compete at a really high level, that tells you the right guy's coaching that team. And Kelvin Sampson, I love what he does and what he'll continue to do.
Coach, we love what you do, and we hope you continue to do it. We will talk to you next week again, and more hoops then, more Jazz, and then we'll see where all our local college teams are, all right?
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
He's Steve Cleveland. He's a former BYU basketball coach. He joins us every week here on The Zone. Coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, Sam Farnsworth joins us from Milan, Italy in the Olympic Games, and Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer on the Super Bowl. Stay with us.